Hello and welcome back to All About Russia. My name's Andrew and today we're going to be looking at something which has been in the news quite a bit. The Russian Constitution. In this video we are going to be trying to answer what exactly it is, why it was needed and what it actually says. A constitution is an agreed set of principles or rules that a country or another entity agree to be governed by. This is seen in countries around the world, and the Russian Federation, being a country made up of other smaller states and republics, is no different. The government and all its citizens are entrusted with upholding the constitution, although they can of course amend it and even get rid of it completely if they so wish. A government failing to do so is often grounds for that government to be overthrown. Whilst this video will be about the constitution of the Russian Federation, it's worth bearing in mind that every republic within the Russian Federation also has its own constitution. None of these of course are at odds with the federal constitution, but more expand upon certain language and national rights particular to those republics. For most of its history, Russia has never had a constitution, the autocracy of the Tsar having no official limits. Whilst the most famous constitution may well be that of the United States, coming into effect in 1787, the first Russian constitution only came into existence in 1833, when Tsar Nicholas I agreed to put into writing some limitations to his own power. That he and his spouse would both adhere to Russian orthodoxy, and that they would follow the line of succession as laid out by the former Tsar Paul I. That was it. No, really, that was it. Other than that, there were really no limits to the Tsar's personal power. The first real constitution is seen coming into Russia in 1906. This came on the back of huge national revolts and protests in 1905. The constitution itself is based on the October Manifesto, a document created in 1905 outlining some limitation to the Tsar's power and greater representation of the people. For the first time, this enshrined some legal rights to the Tsar's subjects, allowed some representation in the State Duma, and put further limitations onto the Tsar's personal power. The Russian Empire and the Soviet state that followed thereafter would have several constitutions thereafter, of which they would retain, amend and remove clauses as they saw fit. The current constitution came into being on the 12th of December 1993 after a national referendum to replace the old Soviet constitution of 1978. This was not a simple process, however, with both political and literal fighting throughout the end of 1993, as Soviet politicians were reluctant to accept the new constitution and the dissolution of the Supreme Soviet. After 13 days of fighting, Boris Yeltsin and his supporters emerged victorious, and the path for a new constitution was secured. It would come into effect as of the 25th of December 1993, with far-reaching effects. The Russian Constitution consists of a preamble, a first section consisting of 9 chapters, and a second section. It has 137 articles, but given the huge number of this, we're not going to be discussing all of them today. Instead, I have cherry-picked a few of them to give you a general overview of each part of the Constitution. A link will be provided in this video below for those of you who would like to read it for yourself, both in English and in Russian. The Russian Constitution has received 4 major amendments, once in 2008, twice in 2014, and once in 2020. The Russian Constitution has also received a plethora of minor changes since 1995 onward, but these are largely regarding the names of certain regions and very other small technical details. Each of the major amendments introduced several new articles and changed several of the existing ones. Section explains that the multinational people of the Russian Federation are united and have established their constitution on the universally recognized principles of self-determination, democracy, and sovereign rights to nationhood. Pretty standard stuff, to be honest with you. This section explains the fundamentals of the Russian Constitution, including key ideas and concepts such as Russia and the Russian Federation being equal, the supremacy of federal laws over all of the Russian territory, as well as the equality of all oblasts, republics, krais, cities of federal importance, autonomous oblasts, and autonomous krais. What's more, it also guarantees that the state will have no official ideology, allow political diversity, and remain a secular state, although later articles may raise some suspicions about this part. This section is the longest in the entire Constitution and outlines much of what is covered in the UN Declaration of Human Rights. This section explains that every Russian citizen has certain rights as of their birth and that all of them are equal before the law. Russian citizens both have the right to life, but also for that to be taken away via capital punishment for grave crimes, although it does not actually specify what these grave crimes are. Torture is banned under Article 21, but a person may be detained for up to 2 days without a court order. This chapter also promises the right to privacy, which can only be overruled by another court order. Every citizen of the Russian Federation is at liberty to choose their own nationality and speak their own language under Article 26. Nor do they have to declare such information officially. These do actually come into play later on in the Constitution when determining who can be president, who can be a judge, and who can actually work for the government. Freedom of speech, movement, and religion are all guaranteed, as well as a ban on any censorship under Article 29. Involvement in government, the right to help dispense justice, and freedom to protest are all protected, with protections of inheritance and private property protected by the state as well. The right to a home and to education are also guaranteed. Innocence until proven guilty and protection from double jeopardy are enshrined here too, with the lucky duties to pay tax and be called up for national service also enshrined here as well. Lastly, the Russian Constitution actually protects its citizens from extradition to foreign powers. This section outlines all of the regions which make up the Russian Federation and proclaims sovereignty over all the land, sea and air therein. As of the 2014 amendment, this also includes the Republic of Crimea and the city of federal importance, Sevastopol. It also states that the territory of these federal subjects can be changed if mutually agreeable. It confirms the Russian Federation as the successor of the Soviet Union, in case the anthem wasn't a dead giveaway, and cites ancient ideals and faith in God as continuous aspects of the Russian state over the last 1,000 years or so. It's at this point I'd like to remind you of that secular state article. It enshrines Russian as the language used in the state dealings, and details the coat of arms, anthem, flag, and confirms that Moscow, not St. Petersburg, is the capital. This section also establishes what the state alone is responsible for, that being foreign policy, defence, and the state budget primarily. It then clarifies what responsibilities are shared with the federal subjects. These include, but are not limited to, responses to and management of natural disasters, protection of indigenous peoples, and environmental protection. Article 75 confirms the Russian ruble as the unit of currency across the Federation. Sorry Bitcoin. Whilst Article 78 confirms the role of the President to uphold these aforementioned rights and duties. Which leads us to... This is a surprisingly long section, as it outlines what the President, and by that I mean Putin's, role in the government actually is. This section confirms that the President is the head of the state, whose role is to determine legal guidelines. Note that says guidelines, not laws, for internal and external policy. It states that the President must be at least 35 years of age, a Russian citizen for at least 25 years, that they shall hold office for 6 years and can run continuously term after term. This used to be limited to just 2 terms, but this was amended. This section also states that the President must swear an oath, and explicitly states it must be done in a solemn atmosphere, in the presence of constitutional court judges, representatives of the State Duma, and members of the Council of Federation. So definitely no party poppers or smiling. Articles 83 and 84 enshrine the President's right to appoint and ask to dismiss a variety of people. Note that he cannot actually dismiss them, just ask the relevant authorities to do so. This includes the Chairman of the Government of the Russian Federation, his deputy, the Chairman of the Central Bank of Russia, judges to the Constitutional Court, as well as other courts, and the Supreme Commander of the Russian Army. The President may also announce referendums, submit legislative bills to the Duma, dissolve the State Duma if it is in breach of the Constitution, as well as have the power to sign into being any federal laws. Article 85 establishes the President as the arbiter of any disputes between different government bodies. It also confirms his rights to make and negotiate foreign policies, whilst Article 88 and 89 give him the right to declare martial law. Article 89 also permits him to resolve issues of citizenship and grant asylum, as we saw with Edward Snowden, whilst Article 91 gives him immunity to prosecution both during and after his terms are up. Again, this was a change made in the 2020 amendment. Article 92 pretty much states that if he's too ill to govern, then the chairman of the government will take his place. And to be honest with you, this is quite possible. The dude is already 67 years old. Article 93 outlines the requirements to actually impeach the president. This scenario would require a grave charge such as treason to be raised and then passed on to the Supreme Court. A third of the deputies of the State Duma would then need to approve the impeachment by a vote for it to be voted on again by the Federal Assembly, both the State Duma and the Council of Federation. This, lastly, would need to be passed by a 2/3 majority of both houses combined. After this laborious process, the impeachment needs to happen within 3 months, or the entire case is just dropped. Poof! Like nothing ever happened. This section outlines the role of the Federal Assembly as both a representative and legislative body of the Russian Federation. It breaks down the Federal Assembly into the State Duma, which has 450 elected deputies from across the Russian Federation, and into the Council of Federation, which has 2 representatives from each federal subject as part of it. And the deputy of the Duma cannot be engaged in any other activity, except for, oddly, teaching or scientific or artistic work. So in theory, you can have 450 active teachers, scientists and painters making up the State Duma. Not a bad thought. These representatives have immunity and cannot be searched, detained or arrested unless posing an immediate risk to the public. Article 100 gives the right to closed-door meetings as opposed to open-door meetings where anyone can come and watch, but also states that the 2 bodies must hold separate meetings and cannot convene simultaneously. Articles 102 and 103 actually outline the powers of the State Duma and the Council of Federation. But to be honest, this video is long enough, so they will be their own video in a future episode. Article 104 gives the right to introduce legislation to all members of the Federal Assembly, the courts and the President. Article 109 clarifies that the State Duma cannot be dissolved during a period of martial law, when charges have been levied against the President 6 months before the President is due to leave office, nor for a year after the President takes office. This article actually offers fairly sound protection for those in the State Duma. This chapter explains the dynamics between the different powers and the different balances within the Russian Federation. Article 110 simply clarifies that the executive power lies with itself consisting of a chairman, the deputy chairman, and various federal ministries. If you recall, Article 83 and 84 gave the President, also known as Vladimir Putin, the one and eternal, the right to ask to dismiss certain judges. Article 111 goes into a little bit more detail about this, stating that this is in fact correct. But if the Duma refuse 3 times, they will be dissolved and new elections held. Article 112 gives the chairman the right to propose who the President should pick for his deputy, but again that right falls to the President themselves. The duties of the government of the Russian Federation are listed as developing a budget for the State Duma to approve, creating cohesion within the various bodies of the Russian Federation, and upholding the rights laid out in the Constitution itself. For those of you paying attention, that means that not only the President and the courts, but also the government are tasked with upholding the Constitution. The government of the Russian Federation can and has offered its resignation, which the President can and has accepted. Interestingly, the State Duma can also hold a vote of no confidence about the Russian government, prompting it to give its resignation if a no vote prevails. This section outlines the general powers of the judiciary. It states that the Russian courts can and will deal with all legal matters, that they cannot be removed from their position, and possess legal immunity under Article 122. This means that unless the President removes them, the only way that a judge can be removed from office is if they break federal law themselves. To become a judge, you simply need to be a Russian citizen over 25, holding a law degree, and at least 5 years of legal experience. On paper, the Russian judges are independent, with their funding coming from the federal budget, but there have been quite a few allegations to the contrary. Worryingly, as of the 2020 amendment, the Russian courts have the power to ignore international law, which creates a very interesting position for a country on the UN Security Council. This chapter summarises the role and general purpose of local government bodies. Article 130 permits local issues to be resolved locally by elected local bodies. Interestingly, as we saw, the regional bodies can swap territory, so can the local bodies swap jurisdiction. They have control over local law and order, budgets, taxes, and communal property, as well as having the legal protection in their right to administer said topics. This section outlines what in the Russian Constitution can be reviewed, amended and changed by who and on what grounds. Article 134 clarifies that the President, the State Duma, so long as a fifth of all members support it, a government minister, the legal bodies of any federal subject as well as the Federation Council, again so long as a fifth of its members support it, can submit for an amendment of the Constitution to be made. Chapters 1, 2 and 9 may not be revised by the Federal Assembly, for obvious reasons, whilst chapters 3 and 8 may be amended upon approval of the relative legislative bodies on the national level, with a 2/3 majority. If a review or amendment is proposed, then a further 3/5 of the Council of Federation and State Duma must vote on it to go forward. Afterwards, a national referendum is required for this amendment to be approved. So, to give you an example, President Vladimir Putin suggested amendments to the Constitution on the 15th of January 2020. The changes covered amendments to chapters 1, 2 and 9. And so it had to go to the State Duma and the Federation Council. They passed this with their blessing, and so went to a national referendum. And we all know how that worked out. This is the last part of the Constitution and covers several minor technical points which aren't as important now as they were in 1993, when changing over from the old Soviet Constitution of 1978. It largely outlines that the old parts of the Soviet Constitution that are no longer compatible with the new Constitution are redundant, that the powers of the President and the government stem solely from the Constitution, and that the Constitution would come into effect as of the 25th of December 1993. And there we have it, the Russian Constitution. My name's Andrew and thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed the content so far, remember to give it a like and subscribe, and feel free to check out some of my other videos over here. Paka!